Hi, everybody. Yeah, and you're on mute, Urena. So if you're talking to us, I'm not sure what you're saying.
I was like, I'm looking. So my camera's on my little computer over here that's like the brain, and then I have a
Ah,
monitor that's bigger and I look at, but
oh, okay.
in a
Okay.
way, I'm not really. I'm looking at you, but
I see. Okay. So when so you may be yeah, there you go. But we'll catch up with you though.
Yeah. So I just need sharing ability in order to show my PowerPoint
Okay.
whenever you're ready and everyone's ready or something.
Sure. Well, we need to get a few more ZRC members on,
Sure.
but we just got our and we are being recorded.
Mhm.
And let me go. So
Yeah, that's my document right there.
okay. So I reached out to all ZRC members, some through text and some I called some, but we'll just kind of hang out for a bit here. Oh, there's Connor. Yay.
Laura.
Yes, hi.
Hi. I responded to your email that you forwarded us from the Housing Committee.
Uh-huh.
We didn't get the attachment.
Oh dear. Okay, that's I'll have to do that again.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me do that while we're waiting for people to attend.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I
Hi,
can,
Connor.
Connor. Welcome.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, and let me go back and find that important.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Sometimes when you forward, it doesn't.
Well, you know what? When you do a reply all, you have to say add attachments, and I clearly had not done that.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing that here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for letting me know.
Okay. Also, Jeffrey Goodman will be joining us, which I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to. I gave him the link, but he's not.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Hi. I'm okay. That's why I can't see
Stroking my
everybody.
beard quizzically. Yes.
Hi, Jeffrey.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. If you hear a toddler running around in the background, it is still Hanukkah, so there might be some excitement.
Yes, and what? 3 more days or 4 more days?
Today is day 5.
So 3 more, I think. Yeah.
3 more days. 3 more days.
So we have some well-placed menorahs in my neighborhood. Well, one in my neighborhood, and there's one on is it 375 or Route 28? Anyway, so we're keeping track. They're helping us keep track.
This year, we got my daughter a little sort of wooden menorah so she could do it, and also because we were like, maybe don't touch the candles. Maybe you should forget where the matches are. Those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, so the question that I have though is, because since I only drive by these menorahs that people have out in the yard, I only drive by them at maybe 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock at night. Do the lights stay on all night, or is that something that they turn off at a certain hour? How does that work?
I don't know. I mean, the Hanukkah candles you get, at the store, which, are pretty standard. They burn down in maybe 20 minutes. These are not
okay.
lifelong things.
Yeah. Okay.
In terms of your other displays, I'm sure I'm a very, very reform. I feel like if you were more religious, maybe you would do things differently. I don't know.
Yeah.
I got my candles at at the Safeway like everyone else.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
this
so,
is-
so I'm happy to hear you're not burning something while you go to bed.
No, fire safety is being stressed in this household.
Good.
My daughter is 3.5. These are important lessons, along with not pulling the cat's tail, along with
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
not
right.
locking the doors.
Oh, that's a good one. Don't
Yeah.
pull the cat's tail. That's a good one.
And don't
Come back
hide,
here, kitty.
yeah, and don't hide the parents' car keys. That's another good lesson.
There's been some of that too. Yeah. So, we're building up this little human. We're doing our best,
Yeah.
but we can start with the things that are life threatening and kind of work our way from there.
Backwards.
There you go. There you go. So, okay. Well, we do have 3 members of the ZRC, and I'm hoping we have some more, but sometimes they come in later. But I do want to get going. We are recorded, and people can be catching up. But we do have the main topic. Well, we're on the STR topic, and where we are today. My goal with the STR is we heard from Kai from the county at our last meeting. We're looking forward very much to hearing from the Housing Committee. Urena has the presentation to share. And so very happy to hear that. And then whatever other conversation we want to have on this call, the Zoning Revision Committee meets on the second and fourth Monday at 6:30, always via Zoom. And so we are not, of course, meeting. We have somebody in the waiting room. Let me just admit. So we are, of course, not meeting on Christmas Day. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, so we're skipping that meeting, and then we'll be back to normal with our second and fourth meeting. And I'm looking for this. This is not going to be a well, and I saw the letter, and Urena, thank you for alerting me to make sure that I read the letter from the Housing Committee about the idea of getting some help with getting the law written. All excellent points in the letter that was forwarded, and so we don't want to take a long time doing this, but we're not going to. It's always good to get the right balance between how fast do you move. You don't want to move so fast that you've rushed and you've done it wrong. You don't want to wait so long that you miss the moment. So we, of course, have an STR law, but the whole reason we're here is pretty well generally agreed that we do need to take a fresh look at it and make some improvements. So in any event, but I do plan to make sure, I think Michael Henry is the person who we had talked previously. Here we go. We're about to get our quorum. Yay. So I had told Michael Henry that I think Michael Henry wanted to speak to what the STR Association had on their mind. And I want to listen as the chair of the ZRC. I want to listen to everybody. So we're doing things in, I think, a very good order, but we also want to listen certainly to what the STR Association has to say. The ZRC will do some deliberations about what our goals are, and from there figure out what needs to be done. And I feel like we're getting great support. It's wonderful that the Housing Committee has been so focused and has some good ideas. It's wonderful that Kai has given us great input from the previous meeting, and I'm sure he'll be there for us. We have some other ideas flowing in. So people are very passionate about this topic, but they're also sharing very good ideas. So that's my plan as we go forward. And hi, Ed, thank you for joining. So we're officially calling the meeting to order because we do have a quorum. And let me make my note here. Now, the other thing that we do say is, as the chair, and guests are invited. These are open meetings. Guests are always invited, and we have guests on today. As the chair, in the event that it ever appears that guests speaking, of course, Urena is our speaker. She's got a PowerPoint. She's going to share it. So she's, of course, speaking, and others will certainly get a chance to speak as well. In the event that appears that people's contributions are derailing the forward motion, it's my job as the chair to bring things back so that we continue the forward motion. So just don't be surprised if I do feel like I need to pull any conversation back, I will. But with all that being said, Urena, if you're ready, I need to make sure you can share the screen. Can you click share and tell me if it works for you?
Yeah, it's ready to go. I can do it now.
Perfect. So
Yeah.
so Urena is going to share her screen, and we're off to the races with the housing presentation.
Okay. So please just confirm that you guys also can see it. I'm gonna do
Yes.
the full version here. I'm gonna try to get it into the full. Can you see? Wait, hold on. There it goes. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so hello, I'm Maria-ElenaConte. I'm on the Housing Committee, and this presentation is about addressing Woodstock's affordable housing crisis. That's really our mission, a proposal for improved enforcement and code revision. Okay, that's not working. Right. I should be able to hit the thing to go, right? Or next. How do we do next?
Well, do you see slide? I see slide 1 of 21. I have a little arrow. If you hit that arrow,
Okay,
does
there
it
we go.
Yeah, there you go.
It's on a different page. Okay, it's on a different computer. So I'm presenting today, and I'm one of the members. I've been there since the beginning, March 2019. This March would be 5 years. And this is we're working on other issues. But in the last we've always been paying attention to what's been going on with short-term rentals, and it made our recommendations like in February 6, 2023, when they were talking about, there was a conversation on the town board talking about raising the cap for non-owner occupied. So we had a letter that we gave our 2 cents, shall we say, and based on our research and our findings. So one of the things that I kind of want to point out is that there's homelessness right here in our own community with working people that are working. But because the affordable housing, there really isn't any, we're under 1% vacancy, and because it's so cost burden, it takes away from food and other things that need to be taken care of. And so sometimes people, and also the difficulties of it's gotten even more harder to get to secure an apartment. So we're just kind of asking how can we do better? What can we do? And there's 4 initiatives the Housing Committee has been working on based on research and moving forward. And this is sort of the 5th thing. There is no silver bullet to the solutions of in creating affordable housing. But what we have found is that a bunch of it's a complex issue that needs complex solutions, and them working together is the answer. So the concern and the solution. The concern is about the rapid proliferation of short-term rentals, significantly contributing to the affordable housing crisis. It's kind of like a pie. This is a chunk of the pie. There's other parts of the pie as well, but this is what we're talking about here today. The solution is a comprehensive short-term rental law revision and funding for Granicus to enforce our laws successfully, accurately, and fairly. The research. To understand current trends and data in the context of our nationwide housing crisis. So based on the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University, this came out in 2023, and it shows there's a lot of data. I gave everybody 2 weeks ago the full form research report, and I'm just trying to take out some key points and put it into a PowerPoint for this presentation. But if you want to dig deeper, there are links in that report to example for here, the Joint Center for Housing Studies of Harvard University. So a couple of points to look at. The number of renters burdened by housing costs soared by 1.2 million, reaching a record of 21.6 million households. And this is during 2019 and 2021. And so therefore, we also know that it has also gotten worse. Of these, 11.6 million face severe cost burdens, spending over 50% of their income on housing. cost burden rates by income group. So the people that are making less than $15,000 a year, it's 86% of them are cost burden. 15,000 to 30,000, 68%, 30,000 to 45,000, 63. And even up in the higher brackets, people, 34% of the population is also having cost burden. And then there's sort of moderate to severe. So the severely burdened are in the red or orange, and sort of the darker color is the moderately burdened. So the difference of severely is more than 50%. And I think moderate is 30%, you know, like above, or maybe above, I think it's 50%, and then above that is severe. Boy, trying to hit that thing. Okay, there we go. So what's the reality? How does this affect people's lives every day? Skyrocketing housing costs. This is from the same document, the same research document. Skyrocketing housing costs squeeze low-income families' budgets, leaving them with only $380 to $680 per month after covering housing, which is a 20-year low. This financial strain threatens their ability to afford necessities like food, clothing, and healthcare, furthering compounding rising inflation. The National Low Income Housing Coalition, it talks about their 2000 out of reach 2023 report about the high cost of housing. So they kind of look at, and you can see New York is the highest, or excuse me, the fourth highest. And I also have more information for that as well. But the central statistics of the out of reach report is that housing wage. So it's an annual estimate of the hourly wage full-time workers must earn to afford a rental home, to afford a rental home at fair market rent without spending more than 30% of their incomes. Nationally, the 2023 housing wage is $28.58 per hour for a modest 2-bedroom rental home, and $23.67 per hour for a modest 1-bedroom rental home. However, we have more information here that, and this is sort of the nationwide, but let me back out for a second. And I'll show you New York State. Let me do the. This is New York State. Can you see it?
Yes.
So for a 2-bedroom, you have to, minimum wage, if you're making minimum wage, which is $14.20 an hour, each week you have to work 98 hours to afford a modest 1-bedroom rental apartment at fair market rent. And it's about, to afford a 2-bedroom, you'd have to make $40.08 an hour. So this is a really good resource that goes and shows you kind of what it's like and what's happening out there. There's a lot of information. So National Low Income Housing Coalition. Okay. Let me go back to the right. I should just use it on the main screen so I don't have to jump around. Okay. So there's this thing called the Airbnb effect, which is a phenomenon of rapid growth of transitioning homes into mini hotels, reducing housing stock that has contributed to the negative impact of the housing crisis. So you kind of think of it as like, if you have 200, as an example here in our town, if we have 296 units that are the cap, which are legal, let's just say, pretend like that's all we have. And you times it, right, so you could have 2 bedrooms, or you could have 8 bedrooms, right? So let's just do an average of 4 bedrooms for each one. That's 1,184 beds, people that don't have long-term housing that we've taken out of the stock. Whether there's an argument of you make it new or it would never be affordable, whatever the argument is, it's just sort of the fact that that now does not exist for long-term rental at all. It's completely taken out of stock. The trend has only been exacerbated by increase of short-term rental vacations, short-term vacation rentals. The surge in short-term listings have driven opportunistic landlords to purchase homes for lucrative short-term rentals, contributing to a global housing shortage and escalating rental prices. The slowdown in new housing construction, supply chain issues, and restrictive zoning laws has only worsened the problem. The imbalance will not meet the rising demand for affordable housing in the next decade, as more properties are exclusively dedicated to vacation rentals. Even in Woodstock, our cap is growing, it's not shrinking. The data, who's counting? Who's paying attention? Who has the data? Granicus does. So this is a slide from Granicus' presentation. The select members, just a few, it became a subgroup of housing committee members, had a presentation with Granicus, and we learned a lot. It was very eye-opening. It was kind of a jaw dropper. So this is one of the things we learned, that there are more than 2 million short-term rental listings in the US, representing 1.6 million unique rental units. So that's really key. More than 2 million STR listings across 70 plus platforms in the US. So one platform, as an example, is Airbnb. Another platform is Verbo. Another platform is Expedia. So those are actually each their own individual platforms that hosts list their rentals on. And there are over 70 platforms that are being used in our area and in our, I guess, jurisdiction to list housing. So there's 2 million listings, but it could be one unique rental unit that has 3 or 4 listings across those 70 platforms. Do you know what I mean? Like, so they pick the 3 best that they want to use or pay for, and they list their same property. So it's very important to be able to know how much how many listings are out there, and that you can't just depend on one. You can't just look at one company, one platform. You have to be looking at all of them in order to accurately enforce or, be able to monitor what kind of activity is happening. Of that, 1.6 million are unique rental units. New York State has over 50,000 short-term rentals, representing one of the highest in the US. In March 2023, New York City found 10,000, as an example, 10,800 illegal Airbnb listings. Between September 2022 and September 2023, Woodstock, New York had 197 illegal unique rental units.
So I have a couple of questions, Urian, if I may.
Sure. We're going to get some more information about Granicus and all you need to know. So I would say to the end, but if you have something burning, go ahead.
Well, it's on this chart. When you say New York City found, did New York City find those illegal ones, or did Granicus find those?
I don't know what they use for their compliance monitoring or address identification. Do you know, Jeffrey?
Yeah, they did that in-house.
So New York City did it in-house. So Granicus didn't actually tell them the 10,800. New York City figured that out.
Yeah, New York City finally started to enforce their own existing law. But
Okay.
we've worked with Los Angeles from scratch. So, we've worked with some of those very, very large cities, and they're their own unique sort of beast just because of the numbers we're talking about and just the bureaucracy that those governments have. But no, New York City did that internally.
Okay. And then the Woodstock number of 197 illegal, did Granicus figure that out, or who
That's
figured?
Granicus.
That was the Granicus
Granicus.
number.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Our account liaison is Samantha, and
Mhm.
she gave that information to us in September. I think she gave it to us in October, about September, from September.
Okay. So we never actually paid Granicus for anything. So would they just be nice to give that to us?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I mean, that was very nice, but it helps us visualize what they can do for us. So that
Correct.
was
In
very
that
good.
presentation, as an example, they did capture screenshots for that day.
Oh,
Static. So
cool.
I'm gonna get into more. There's gonna be
Yeah.
more coming.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for
Okay,
taking the
so-
questions.
Can I ask one really quick question? This is just a sort of throwback to the last time. We had talked about there was like a threshold of available housing that was sort of agreed upon to be a sort of healthy margin. Was that about 4 or 5%? I'm just trying to keep that top of mind.
We'll get there. We'll get there, Connor. And it was various whatever you wanted to do, but the recommendation, we're gonna get to that. We will get to that. Can
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So Granicus and the research. So February 2023, Granicus which is a state and local government monitoring and compliance software for short-term rentals used in Ulster County presentation that we had. They currently so the county currently uses the first base level module that has been somewhat adapted for the county for bed tax. So the county has been employing them for how long, Jeffrey?
I'm not sure. That's
Okay,
that's
few
a something with the
years.
question, but a little bit now. Yeah.
Yeah, so for a few years that we've been set up, that's how they are making sure and checking what's going on for their bed tax. Enlightened session spurs us. So this enlightening session spurred us to the housing committee to explore the intricacies, identify pain points, and find potential solutions. So we had this presentation. Our jaws were dropping. We learned a lot. We got some data. The thing about data is it takes away all of that emotional bit that there's both sides have, like, different people feel differently about short-term rentals. But when you start looking at actual data, you kind of just go, oh my gosh, it's just a eye-opening situation that takes away some of that emotion. You go, that's actually the numbers. This is what's really going on. So at that point, we then went, okay, we need to do more research, find out what's going on, what's happening, and learn the process. And so we conducted further research on regulations, fee structures, and rules employed by neighboring Hudson Valley municipalities. We also went to the building department, and they just told us what they're doing, and as we asked questions, and they asked us questions, and we just tried to figure out what was happening. And so then we had question answer. We've kind of gone back and forth a bit with various follow-up questions with Granicus. We did analysis, discussion, and a short-term rental law audit with short-term rental consultant Jeffrey Goodman, who is here tonight, that I've been asking questions to help follow up to learn about best practices.
So let me just clarify. So Jeff, well, and the other thing too is, if we look at the chat, 2 people asked whether Kai's coming. He never committed to me he was coming.
He can't come tonight. I talked to him. He can't. He's got a family thing going on tonight.
Okay. And then the other thing is, so Jeff, and somebody in the chat said you were from Granicus, but you are for Granicus?
Yeah, so let me very briefly introduce myself.
Yeah.
I know that's in there. My name is Jeffrey Goodman. I am trained as an urban planner. I am Granicus's in-house policy consultant, and I've been working around the country and in Canada on short-term rental regulations and enforcement systems for all sorts of different local governments.
Mhm.
Working with them, everything from doing the public outreach and answering questions, all the way to writing ordinances, editing ordinances, getting up in front of people and having various people yell at me if necessary, all those things. So that's what I do, and I've worked with hundreds of cities at this point. And so that is my area of expertise, and that's why Granicus, the rest of the company, they're more of a software and engineering and government thing, but they realized that lots of places need help figuring out what are we enforcing before we can really get into the enforcement software. And so I actually started with Host Compliance, which was the company that was acquired by Granicus 4 years ago, for that role, and that's what I've been doing now for 6 or 7 years, 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
So yes.
Yeah, and not that it matters, but can I ask where you live?
I live in New Orleans.
Oh wow.
and that's how I got into it. Not to take too much time, but it's a huge topic here. We're a city that has tremendous housing issues. You think about the minimum wage. The minimum wage here is $7.25. And at the same time, tourism is a huge part of our economy. And
Sure.
there's been a lot of attention about that. And so back in 2014, I realized there wasn't a lot of good data about what was going on. This was before it was still banned in New Orleans at the time. And so I got on my bicycle and created my own maps and started doing some data analysis there. That led to an article for the American Planning Association. And then the founder of Host Compliance contacted me out of the blue and said, I need help on this. And you seem to be the only planner who's talking about it. So that was 2015. And that's what I've been doing since.
So if we in the town were to hire Granicus, we might get you or we might not. Like whether or not we got you would depend on what. I'm sure Granicus has different offerings, and getting you might be one of the offerings, for example.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I think so. Be into that. Yeah, but I'm a module. I'm a module, just like every other widget.
There you go. Okay.
Because
Sounds
just every local government we deal with is in a different place, has different needs. Their ordinance demands different things, and so we went with a more modular system from the beginning, because some places need this, but they don't need this. Some places want all these things, right? So I'm a module. I'm a module within that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
So what is Granicus? In the 21st century, manual tracking of short-term rental activity has become impractical. Human capabilities fall short in terms of the speed and accuracy required to manage and analyze extensive data sets. It's a classic David and Goliath scenario. So a state and local government monitoring and compliance software, they're also a state and local monitoring and compliance software for short-term rentals. Ulster County is currently using the address identification, I mentioned this before, module to assess the bed tax for the county. They're equipped with cutting-edge AI software and dedicated team of 300 analysts that monitor 70+ short-term rental platforms for short-term rental activity. They also do other things within the 5 modules, which would significantly reduce time spent by our employees to approximately, I think he said 2 hours a week for 1,000 short-term rentals. And we have less than that, under half of that. So this could free up a lot of time. Let me go back for a second. This would really help to free up time for and I'm going to talk about this again towards the end when we get to another slide. The building department that is, overwhelmed, and gives them the opportunity to then get to the other things in their building department, and enforcement and permitting, all that stuff that is maybe being kind of pushed to the side, or they're unable to, humanly, it's like humanly impossible to do all the things. And so we're either not being able to do, it's not really their fault. They're kind of being set up to fail because we're dealing with sort of a caveman trying to compete with a robot. Do you know what I mean? We need to give them the best tools to do what they need to do, and Granicus offers that. So let me tell you a little bit more. There's 5 modules. The first one, which is the base level, is called the address identification module. It has ongoing monitoring of all things in your jurisdiction, updating listing activity and details every 3 to 5 days. So when you think about someone's in the building department, they're supposed to be watching this. Right now, they have to call the county, ask for, and correct me, Jeffrey, on this, call the county, ask for a report to download, which is static. Send it over, and maybe this happens once a month, maybe it happens once a week, maybe it happens once every 3 months, every quarter. It's not the same. And what things that they do, and Jeffrey can potentially get into that, is hosts will maybe hide their listing during the week, and then they turn it on Friday night. Am I right, Jeff? Turn it on Friday night. Well, we've all gone home, not working and not paying attention. Go ahead, Jeffrey. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just if they know what time people are at work, and if you're really trying to avoid eyes like that, then yeah, you have all sorts of little tricks, and we've seen it all to try to obscure what is going on your listing, or if your listing exists, because they know that people are not paying attention after 5 p.m., but that's also when a lot of people are booking things for later times. So,
and they can book for up to, like, you can book a year in advance, and and then turn it off, and so they don't look like they're doing any activity, but they are. So anyway, every 3 to 5 days, different times in the day or night, Granicus is doing screenshots of the activity of every listing. And they're screenshotting it, and they're also pulling that together as evidence as well for later, for compliance. And it also has, these other activity dashboard and map to monitor trends and breakdowns of compliance. So, but that's also very large data.
I have a question.
sets.
I have a question for you on the previous page.
Okay. On the address
Yes.
identification.
So,
Yeah.
so this is what the county has purchased.
Correct.
And so what does that mean for Woodstock? So I think I heard you say a minute
what
ago.
it means is that they already have it for them, but what it means is that now we'll get a live login, our own, to look at our own.
So
but it's-
because the county's purchased it, any town in the county can get the same benefit because we can log in just like the county can.
Only the towns that have signed up for the Housing Smart Community Initiatives, which we are one of them. So
Right.
there's 11 of them. There's 11 of them, and then an opportunity for 5 more if they sign up.
So because we're a housing smart community,
Uh-huh.
we actually get the benefit of this. The county gets the benefit, but we can hook into and look at our own stuff.
Right, it's a carrot. However, it's not, it's a major step, it's a first step, but in order to have Granicus services, this is the minimal that you have to have. It's not the full package, and it's not the compliance.
Right. So I'm
Doesn't
understanding
drive
that, but
compliance. Yeah.
right. But so my next question is, for Woodstock to benefit, so there's a piece, there's one of the 5 modules the county's already purchased. Because Woodstock is a housing smart community, we can get this benefit. So who would train somebody in Woodstock on how to log in?
Granicus would do all the onboard training.
So would we pick a person? So part of what the county paid for is training Woodstock, or would Woodstock have to ante up something to get trained?
No. The county has bought it for these 11 municipalities, potentially 16 total, and they will do the whole onboarding. It's part of the package for doing the basic address identification. It's a really big step, and it's really great. It's just
which is fabulous. It's a fabulous.
No, this is great. It's a really great first step. This is in the great direction.
Will there be a training session So I guess I'm thinking, like, is there a limit to how many people from Woodstock can get trained? Is there a training session that'll be scheduled in January maybe? Because it's
I
going to
think we're
be,
getting way in the weeds here, Laura. I think, let me go over the rest of this and we can get into that more later. So right now, Samantha is working with the county, Kai and Max and everybody in the county, the team of the county, the planning department. Right now, we spoke on Thursday. So she is moving forward with trying to get that set up and going.
okay,
Because it is sort of the 11th hour of the year and with calendar years and budgets and all that stuff.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
she's working really hard to get us set up, but it's still going to take a little time before it's live.
yep. Sure. Well,
Meanwhile,
sure.
I just want to show you what the other pieces, I mean, I
Yes.
don't want to, drag this on too much. So the next, one of the next important ones is there's a 24/7 human hotline module. It has phone, it has web, it's a hotline, it's 24/7. They can connect with a human being to report short-term rental complaints such as parking, trash, noise disturbance, and illegal short-term rentals. There's mobile enabled online web form, like there's other text, videos, photos, and this also helps to build evidence in cases where there's illegal activity, because right now it's very difficult. And for the building department that has been trying to go through the courts and enforce our laws, when Butch has been trying to do that, and he's been getting resistance from the courts, and I don't really know all the details to that. I'm not going to say that I do. I don't want to speak out of turn, but a lot of times, as we've learned, and maybe Jeffrey, you can speak to this, there tends to be a lack of evidence. And go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's noise, which is obviously very transient, trash, parking, a lot of those things. By the time a first responder shows up or a code enforcement person shows up, it's already over. There's not really a lot of documentation. Now the person who complained is aggrieved and is maybe stewing because they've been aggrieved. But there isn't a lot of evidence. It's very difficult often for people to record something and send it to the town, because the town just doesn't have the capability to intake that, and then you send it to the police, and that seems like a little bit of an overkill. So this the hotline was developed from that experience, and in almost everywhere we operate with this, the first call, if we do get a complaint, is to the designated contact person listed on their application, on their license, assuming you're licensed, and for them to respond. A lot of ordinances say an hour, some are a little vague about what they have to do. And then if they don't respond, and we will text back whoever complained, if they don't respond, then it gets kind of escalated to more of a violation. And all of this is documented, it's time-stamped, it's all there for you to peruse. And we also have people who go back and look at some of those complaints and go, that's not really a complaint, but it's there because that person will show up to a city council meeting and say, hey, I've had all these problems, right? So
the other thing is that it could be for safety. Maybe your neighbor sees a fire going on, the short-term rentalers are out to dinner and can immediately call in and have, or something going on, or
well, it's emergency, they should go to 911. But yeah, it's collecting that information and keeping it in a singular place, and having it all tied to individual addresses, individual owners, individual licenses, allows you to make the case when you go to do do enforcement or go to the courts and say, here's the complaint we got, it came at this exact time, here's when this person responded, here's the video of it, rather than we got a complaint that there was noise, we showed up 9 a.m. and there was nothing there. So right. That's why we document it. And also for the hosts, the flip side of that, I think, is the hosts can say, no, we did respond to this, or there was a complaint and we settled it. Here's the documentation of that as well.
Because it's recorded. Also, we spoke a little bit about red flags and yellow flags, and we'll get into that more later. But some of this is considered yellow flag. If you're, a bearer of sound or noise, it's not necessarily a red flag. Let me move on though. We could get in the weeds. So compliance monitoring module. This is really, really very important key. And I wanted to say one other thing. The other thing about the 24/7 human hotline in the building department, they spoke about how the phones are just ringing off the hook. And this helps to alleviate that constant interruption and pressure that they're having based on short-term rental, compliance issues or questions, or do you still have a cap, or, blah, 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 blah. And there's other parts of other modules also, these other modules will also help with that too. And so that they can kind of get back to doing what they need to be doing in other areas of enforcement for our town. So compliance monitoring is the next one. Compliance monitoring provides an up-to-date information for each identified rental unit and its compliance status. So you configure your compliance definition specific to your jurisdiction rules. So this is whatever your short-term rental laws are now, they would put in if we started right away and got it going. And then because the secret process requires a long time here in Woodstock to have the zoning updated and, go through our public hearings and all that business. So it might be a long time before the short-term rental laws are updated. And we don't want to wait. We would like to continue on. Do you want to speak to that, Jeffrey, at all? Anything here on the compliance monitoring?
Yeah, so what we do is once you have the addresses and we have the listings tied to those addresses, we use the inputs you have from your ordinance to determine a compliance status. And that again gets updated every time we scan those sites. So every 3 or 5 days, whatever it is. And it allows you through a dashboard to say, these are the non-compliant ones, just show me the non-compliant ones, and they show you the non-compliant ones. And then from that, we will actually take up the task of mailing letters out. Now, the letters are not from Granicus. They're on your letterhead. They're whatever your town council wants them to be. We're not a government. This is just more of a service. But we will do those things automatically. No one has to, in your office, be stuffing envelopes. It's going to be through certified mail, that satisfies all legal requirements. And those letters can say whatever you want. Some places go immediately, give us your fine. Some places send out warnings. It just allows you to communicate directly and to initiate some of those compliance practices automatically through the system. You don't have to print anything out. It just does it automatically.
But the big thing is that they're cross reference, like they're looking and cross-referencing the address identification, what activity is actually happening, because the AI goes to those 72 different platforms, and they capture, based on those addresses, they capture, literally screenshot capturing, and create and put these into those sets, the data sets that are based on those unique rental units. And then an analyst, one of the 300 or many analysts that come, and they double check by 3 points. They have to have 3 points. It can't be just like a one-off. They have to look at 3 different points of evidence to confirm that that's a unique rental unit that is maybe illegally, doing activity. Or, we have this non-owner occupied 180-day and only so many weekends, and which is a little cumbersome and hard to enforce, but it will be able to help to enforce or look at because at the moment, apparently they're only writing in a log by hand what kind of activity these hosts are doing, the 296 hosts, and this is keeping everybody honest. It also means that we will get our full revenue. The town is potentially losing revenue right now as well, and the county is as well. Did you want to say, Jeffrey?
This is a really useful piece in terms of also driving compliance, because we sometimes treat our screenshots like red light cameras. I don't know if you have any up there, but we will say, here's a letter that says we don't think you're in compliance from Woodstock, and then on the back of it is a screenshot of their entire listing. You know, like, it is not scattershot in that way. It is specific to it. And again, that all can be done without you having to stuff envelopes. And actually, to a point I think we talked about a little earlier, you know, the access to our system, you can have as many logins as you want. So if you have multiple departments who need to touch this issue or need access to some piece of it, there's not a seat count. You just say, we need these extra logins, and we'll give you those logins. Because I know this is something that cuts across building and fire and finance and all these other things. That's totally up to you who you want accessing it and what parts you want accessing.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. So the first question is, so the kinds of compliance issues you're going to uncover is if somebody's only allowed to rent their unit for, say, 60 days and they're renting it 90, that's a compliance thing you would find. So you'll find if somebody's renting it more than they're supposed to, because somebody who has a owner occupied, and we're probably going to change that terminology, but anyway,
yeah,
for lack of a better thing, if somebody's owner occupied, they probably get to rent as much as they want. If somebody is non-owner occupied, then there's a limit to that because they're trying to limit the commodity stuff. So the compliance that you'll notice is when somebody's renting when they're not allowed to. They've rented too many days more than they're allowed to. So that's the compliance you're going to notice. Is there, do these things tie together? Like the 24/7 human hotline, those are going to be infractions, we'll call it, right? Maybe that's an infraction. Do infractions, would I need to be paying for the 24/7 human hotline module to get compliance? Because maybe there's enough infractions that equals a compliance issue as well. So do these things tie together? Just one a prereq of the other?
Right.
One is not, besides address identification, because we got to know who these people are. It's pick and choose to what your needs are. And again, some places don't have certain requirements, and so they don't need to monitor things. If you don't have a day limit, then you wouldn't have to do certain types of monitoring. Some places say, we'll handle stuffing envelopes, we got interns, we'll do it that way. So really, other than address identification, everything else is to what degree you want to automate some of the compliance efforts.
I want to add, though, when you said the stuffing envelopes, because what Samantha had said in our first is that when you have actual screenshots of someone's listing that is accompanied in the email with the letter. So there's one thing if you do it by hand and send a letter, certified mail, that's one thing. That's what already happens now. But when you have a screenshot that goes along with that letter, when you first send the letter, someone goes, they don't know what I'm doing. But when you have that screenshot with it, she said that it increases it drives compliance, and it increases by 70%. Maybe I said that wrong, and could you?
No, that's accurate, because again, people now know that you know, right? And that's the biggest issue, I think, with trying to do things by hand, is people try to go as, unscrupulous people. There are lots and lots of great hosts, and I always want to say there are lots and lots of great hosts. We're talking about this very small percentage that really are going a little crazy. People will take the attitude of, I have every incentive to just keep going until I get caught, and I don't think that I'm going to get caught for a while. And then there'll be the whole process of actually, finding me or anything. So I have a lot of reasons as an unscrupulous host to go nuts. And our systems are there to shorten that time, make it more automatic, make it more direct, and also be more be fairer, I suppose, because everything is backed by evidence. Everything has everything is time stamped. It's not when a building person was able to kind of get the time to sit there and comb through it, which maybe doesn't capture everyone who's operating at other times of the year or other times of the week. So in terms of violations, those sorts of things, all that information, all the actions that are taken, all are in the same database. So you can see who's gotten a letter in the last 12 months. You put that filter in, it'll tell you exactly which properties did it. If they have a violation that changes how they're supposed to operate, that's going to be in there too. So it is a singular database for all of that information to be able to flow to give you a real sense of what's going on in the short-term rental market in one place. Yeah.
And if they're doing, if the hostess, assuming a host is doing the right thing and they're following the rules, then they've got no reason to worry about it. There's, you know what I mean? It's not like running around trying to gotcha. It's trying to enforce that has been literally impossible, humanly impossible to do with even just 4 people. You know, we're talking about it's, you know, overwhelming task and challenge. And so we need to give our town, you know, the tools for them to be able to accurately and fairly here is the actual data. You know, it's not me arguing or I didn't, you know, it's showing right here. This is the actual data. So
one more piece.
Yeah.
One more piece about this is, you know, I think of a lot of violations around short-term rentals is 2 kind of buckets, right? There's kind of licensing issues, and then there's sort of quality of life issues, on the ground issues. A lot of the stuff coming out of the these types of tools, besides the 24/7 hotline, are going to be more on the licensing side. So do they have a license? Are they operating within the limits of that? If they're supposed to have 2 bedrooms, they're advertising 4 bedrooms. You know, if they're over any sort of day limit, if they are claiming things that are not allowed, if they're not informing people, if they're not including their license number in their advertisement, those sorts of things are, on one hand, much more direct. I mean, I used a red light camera analogy, but you know, if noise is kind of a very subjective thing, if you have a permit or you don't is very objective. If you included your license number, you didn't, it's very objective. You either did or you didn't, right? And so some of that helps drive compliance and streamline some of that when you go to court or whether you start to send out enforcement letters, because there's not a lot of gray area there. It just is or it isn't. And so we found a lot of success, or places have had a lot of success by being able to tighten that licensing sort of bucket of violations and having that trickle down to quality of life. If you're not willing to get a license or abide by the licensing, you're probably not maintaining your property very well. You're not probably being very respectful of your neighbors. So that's one of the reasons why it does help a lot on some of those things that feel very immediate to neighbors, right? No one likes to live next to a big party or trash or anything. But some of those licensing things can really help solve those on the ground problems by making sure whoever's in this industry has agreed to be in this industry and agreed to all the rules that you've set.
Yeah, Jeffrey, we talked about Kai and last couple of meetings about which came out of the audit discussion we had with you. And Jeffrey Collins, I don't know if he's here right now, but were the yellow tickets and the red tickets, or yellow flags, red flags. And so this is an example of, if you don't have a license, that's a red flag. And that's, you know, pretty objective. And then, oh, but you know, you keep leaving your garbage out. Okay, well, maybe you're going to get a few warnings. That's a yellow flag. And so enforcement is, you know, maybe a little more lenient. You get three strikes, you're out, versus maybe, and that has to do with also how we're going to revise, or how you're going to, how our town is going to revise the short-term rental laws. But this is, this helps us to keep it, the emotions out of it, and have a little more of the data and be accurate, which is fairer. I'm going to move on to the next. The next one is sort of 2 together, because technically, as I saw it, Jeffrey, the 5th one was sort of free. So they kind of go together. So this is sort of 4 and 5, registration and permitting portals. So mobile enabled online portal backend system, streamlining the registration, licensing, permitting of individual short-term rentals. These registration workflows include, you know, the host login, dashboard, parcel number lookup, debit, payment, all these things that would literally give people an opportunity to quickly, especially if they live in their first home, so non-owner occupied as an example, you can't make it up here to go into the office between, 8:30 and 4:30. And so, but if you can do this all online, great. And then it's less sort of paperwork, literal paperwork for the building department, because it's really all done online. And again, back to how much with all 5 modules would you say, Jeffrey, does the person in the building department or the employee that is in charge of monitoring and sort of, this supervising short-term rentals in general, how much time, if we had all 5 modules, would they need to attend to this a week?
Well, not certainly not as much as they weren't if they weren't sort of with us. We have some very, very involved customers who want to, they're refreshing it all the time. They want to see everything come in. A lot of this can be really, really hands off. I mean, we have some customers that do auto approvals, right? Because Wyoming is an interesting place, but just they, basically a lot of places have kind of 2 touch points. They approve an application, they make sure that it's accurate and has been uploaded correctly, and then if something is flagged as being out of compliance, and that's pretty much the only 2 touch points they need to do themselves.
Right.
Or most places kind of choose to have one of their staff take the time. That is significantly less time than uploading something themselves or taking something that's handwritten and uploading it and then refreshing all these things. So that's why it works in the way that it does.
Yeah. Or even having to hand enter data. Like I've done data, you gotta like fill in the data, you have something in writing, you gotta put it in,
We'll never get rid of paper forms, but I will say that, this is an internet business. People who are in it are already demonstrating that they're probably pretty internet savvy, because how else would they have created
Correct.
a listing? And so, and also, like you said, if people are not local, or if it's not easy for them to come in during work hours, this would be helpful. Also, I will say, we have seen places do some more online permitting because they're getting into sort of more exotic systems for license distribution, whether that's lotteries, whether that's buffer limits, whether they have rotating caps, all these things. Being able to say, okay, we'll take permits 24 hours a day online for this week. That's going to be our application time, and then we're going to draw from that. For places that have those more unique systems, it gives people the ability to not have to camp out like they're getting Rolling Stone tickets or something and try to get in first. So there are some options there.
All right.
Okay, I do have another question. So,
Sure.
and that is, Jeff, you said earlier that you were one of the modules. Which of these 5? I didn't see you. Help that town write its law. I didn't see you listed as one of the modules.
He's joking.
I'm my own module that is consulting.
Okay.
Separate consulting, and again that's more for
Helping with short-term rental revision, writing, consulting.
Okay.
And so that is
he's a professional consultant.
So if we wanted help writing the law, that would be module number 6, which would be you, so to speak.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm 5+1. Yeah, so that they talk about modules. It's very technical. I was being a little glib, but yes. I have sort of standalone consulting, whether that's writing something, working very intensely with you guys to edit something, convening meetings about how to do goal setting, right? Some places are way at the beginning of this process and don't even know where they're going, or even public engagement, or public meetings, anything where planning and policy involved. That's where I can meet you, and I will always meet you wherever you need to be. Within all these other modules, I'm very generous with my time in terms of, we have one question or we have one little policy thing. Of course, I'm around, and Granicus will throw me into the fight. But bigger projects, obviously something like writing revisions or helping to edit, that's going to be a standalone consulting piece that can
Okay.
that is part of the
Okay.
services we offer.
All right, so I'm gonna move forward a little bit.
Well, yeah, I know you do, Urena, but we got Jeff, and I got another question. So my other question is, so we have modules 1 through 5. The town of Woodstock has whatever number of STRs. If the town of Woodstock wanted to go through modules 1 through 5, is the cost determined by the number of STRs we have, the number of residences? How do you, so is the cost of getting Granicus's help is based on number of STRs?
It's based on the number of STRs and then the number of modules beyond address identification. Right?
And
So
we also have a shared cost agreement with the county that we are getting a major discount for.
So we get it because the county is hooked in. We get a discount if we want modules 2 through 5. We can get a discount. Okay.
We have yes.
So then my other question is, if we needed you to help, that would be a separate contract with a price to be determined, because we would have to figure out what consulting we need. So that doesn't have a set formula.
Correct.
We'd figure that as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, we have some sort of boilerplate scope of works, right, about different types of projects, but obviously we tailor that intensely when we talk about these things, just because everyone needs something a little different. Everyone has different requirements. Everyone has a different timeline, all those things. So I'm very flexible about all of that, and very flexible in terms of how to make sure that you're getting the services that you want in terms of just consulting, let alone any of the software.
Yeah. Well, my profession is project management, so agreements is kind of what I do. It's under, so that's why I'm asking the agreements question, so that we know what, and setting expectations is step 1. So all right, thank you, good answer, thanks.
Okay, so the comprehensive plan that we adopted in 2018, on page 5 there are 2 essential recommendations on which there was almost universal community agreement. Number 1, the town of Woodstock should aggressively pursue both government and private grant funding opportunities for a variety of town projects. I would argue that by raising the short-term rental fees, we have one of the lowest in the county. I think maybe even the lowest in the county. And especially for the amount of short-term rentals, we are the 2nd highest per population. And that came from March Gallagher, the county comptroller's research data. So by increasing the fees for the short-term rentals to a formula that Granicus uses, that we can work with, and we'll find out more about that in the coming month or 2, but or in coming days, excuse me. But also, even if we just went up to the level that other neighboring municipalities are at, so as an example, $150 from like 50 to 150 would alone be, for 296 short-term rentals, would be $44,400, which would cover the other 4 modules and Jeffrey's fee, and have some left over. Almost.
Just to give you an idea about where fees are at around the country, I see someone in the chat has referenced Rhinebeck. I think, was it Newport, Rhode Island is 500 and 750, depending on whether you're owner occupied or not. Atlantic City, I think, has maybe the highest, and it's, I think, for the most expensive type of permit, which is a very large non-owner occupied home near the beach. I think it's $1,800, something like that, and that includes an inspection fee, it includes an application fee. Certainly, with inflation and everything, we're seeing places go more towards 500, 750. A rule of thumb that we often look at is what is the nightly average? What price? What is 2 or 3 times that? That's one long weekend a year for the government, and then the rest of the weekends for everyone else. That is moving, I think, in a lot of places towards 750. And certainly if you have a difference between owner occupied, for lack of a better term, and non-owner occupied, often owner occupied is gets some sort of lower amount, and that's justified because there's less enforcement needs on it. But
Right.
certainly things are edging higher. And in a lot of places, if you do look at that nightly fee, it's not going to be some huge burden on the local market.
Right. Number 2, the town of Woodstock should ensure effective enforcement of town zoning regulations and local laws. And this is a number 1. And we want to give, our building department and other departments the best tools that they can be successful in doing and meeting expectation by the town, as well as giving them the opportunity to not be so overwhelmed and drowning in the amount of work to be done that they're either missing something unintentionally, or they're having to put other zoning enforcement that we have issue with around our town in other areas to the side. So I think it's kind of a win-win-win situation. And it is, what the people of the community in the town want, as one of the top 2 essential recommendations. The next slide is the solution. So we as the housing committee advocate for enlisting Granicus, implement all 5 modules for enforcement by immediately raising the short-term rental fees to cover what Ulster County cannot. Given the urgency, our town cannot afford further delay. Next, to begin training and set up the onboarding of these modules, start setting up and training staff in January 2024 to go live by peak season this year coming up. Revising the code, hire a short-term rental consultant, Jeffrey Goodman, to help us revise the code accurately and fairly, as opposed to starting with one of the platforms and having them give us advice, and that just doesn't work out. Jeffrey, can you speak to that? I know I was reading a lot in the literature and some of the information about one of the big flags is to not let your platforms be giving you advice and some of the things that they do to actively work against municipalities. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the major platforms have not been good friends to cities. And I don't mean that just in terms of their impacts of their products, but just that they have not been accurate and fair in how they work with local governments. And they often try to play against each other. They often act kind of as a cartel. They sometimes just give false information. They've been sued by a lot of different local governments. Big one was over tax payments at a Hilton Head, where just there wasn't any auditability to the systems, and the local governments didn't think they were getting the correct tax information, let alone any of the other kinds of enforcements. So they have been very difficult, I think, for local governments to work with. They have their own incentives. They're worth $40 billion or whatever it is. On a local level, I think a lot of times local hosts are just easier to wrangle with because they are they're local, and they have actual addresses. They're not a cloud that's based on a server somewhere unclear. So I think places that have focused more on the local markets and the local people who are actors in that market, they just find a lot more success and a lot faster, and they don't have to pay as many lawyers. The cities that have really gone for working with platforms, they have to go to the Mets, right? They're New York City or Los Angeles or Vancouver that have these huge legal departments that can craft very specific regulations for the platforms. So there are lots of places with tax agreements with Airbnb or VRBO. That's mostly for convenience. But in terms of any of enforcement pieces, they are not they're not really that useful.
I was also reading one of the things that said that they actively will scrub the listings on their websites to prevent municipalities from being able to accurately read some of the activity as well.
Yeah, they're just again, I mean,
Yeah.
not to impugn everyone at those companies. I've met people who work at Airbnb. I'm sure they're fine
Sure.
people, but their incentives are very different than local governments, and so
Correct.
they often are just not. They're not good partners. I'll be political for once. They're not good partners with local governments.
So
when
it
it comes,
this helps us to be more accurate and find out what's really going on, right?
yeah, and fairer. I mean, that's the
Right.
other thing is a lot of places that have agreements with one platform but not any of the others. There are some questions about fairness and whether people's listings are being enforced evenly. We take great pride in the fact that we are not owned or associated with any of these companies. We are totally independent from them.
Right.
And so we're going to give you independent information about that.
Right. And, revising the code, one of the big reasons the housing committee, we have all discussed this, is that we would like to have, someone who is a consultant that knows and has been around the block and knows what, because even in that meeting in February, I think there was not a single person that their jaw wasn't dropped going, oh my God, I had no idea that this was going on, and have learned since going off and doing our own research a little bit more about what's been going on. So I want to move forward. The benefits: improved compliance with short-term rental regulations, increased revenue from short-term rentals, reduce stress on building department staff, enhanced community protection, more affordable housing options for long-term residents. If we are sort of balancing that housing stock, because remember, we have a lot of illegal activity happening. So even if we stayed forever and ever 296 short-term rentals, at least we're not over that number, that we have some compliance and enforcement that's making sure that we stick to that number.
I did want to mention, because that is a really important thing I see in the chat from Heather about the relationship between short-term rental units and long-term rental units. One of the most exciting things that I've seen over the last couple of years with local governments on this issue is starting to get very creative about housing and trying to find creative ways for short-term rentals and long-term rentals to coexist, to support each other, to do a lot of very interesting things. Now, some of those have been driven by need in places like Colorado, where there's a lot of really intense housing need and very, very expensive properties and a lot of short-term rentals. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even before the pandemic, everything was just about compliance. Now I think there's a lot of really great examples from around the country and even internationally of leveraging short-term rentals to further affordable housing goals or housing goals in general. And so that's it's very exciting to see. And it is also one of those things that moves this issue past kind of yes or no, which is often where the issue ends up in a lot of communities, where you're either for it or against it, and there's kind of nothing in between.
Right.
So it's just a very exciting sort of movement that we've seen to further some of those housing goals, because it is such a need.
So I think here, our mission is for balance. And at the end of the day, it's been very out of balance. And so we're trying to bring it back into balance. No one in the town, no housing community member, no town board member, none of us are saying to completely 100% ban short-term rentals. That's not, I think, the goal here, as far as I know. But we are very, very out of balance, and we need to get that back into balance and do what you're sort of saying. Okay, there's plenty, we keep talking about that. So the next step, short-term rental law revise. And this is, I'm not going to get into all this, but I wanted to put a slide in here because I know that there are those things to do. And in terms of the law part, we talked a lot about Granicus, but they are connected. And so we recommend that creating overarching goals and objectives start with the explicit. So if you were going to work with Jeffrey or do it on your own or whatever, the first step is, and there's a lot of information that we've learned about, so we're sharing with you, that you want to create your overarching goals or objectives and think about And, you know, what is the big picture here at the end of the day? What are we trying to achieve? So we kind of recommend start with explicit policy objectives based on comprehensive plan goals and the town's housing committee mission, which is based on the comprehensive goals. So, and the comprehensive plan. Examples that, you know, these are just examples, hypothetical, not necessarily the answer, but just for comprehension understanding. Ensure that traditional residential neighborhoods are not turned into tourist areas and to the detriment of long-term residents. Or these are just some examples of goals that you guys, the ZRC or the town board, everybody could create together. I don't going further. And then from that, you then do the research of reading, analyzing, and assigning specific code, say to these goals. So say if A, you would go in and say, maybe we need to do whatever. So the town of Maria-ElenaConte has, maybe they're doing what Connor was asking, 2%, which is, I think, what's recommended by Granicus had some information on that, but it depends on what our goals are. So we decide 2% of the population, say, for short-term rentals, or 2% non-owner occupied and 3% owner occupied, or, you know, 1%. I mean, however you do it, but that would be in your code. So I've gone through some of these various ones, and I have links here. It's also in the document I gave all the zoning revision committee. A lot of this information is all in the document I sent you 2 weeks ago that you have. And so you can go and check it out. And but anyway, so that's pretty much the next step that you would be doing with working to maybe even get ready for Jeff if you wanted to, or to do your own. That's what's recommended for next steps.
Yeah.
In conclusion, the Woodstock Housing Committee is committed to working with the town board, the Ulster County government, and the community to address the affordable housing crisis and create more sustainable housing environment for our community. We believe that our proposal represents a significant step towards achieving that goal. And thank you for your time and attention. We welcome your questions and feedback. And okay, I'm done.
So Urena, I do hope that you'll send everybody the PowerPoint. I know it's all it's embedded in what you sent 2 weeks ago, but the PowerPoint is a nice summary. So it has a lot of, easier to talk to the points here, I think, in some cases. So this would be a great reference as well if you're willing to send the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I do want to, and thank you, an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
sorry, it's very wordy, but there's a lot of information. I try to bring it, into a, and I just want to say too, that there was other information like Air DNA, I mean, that was also in here, Granicus, they have information, New York City, this is the Ulster County Housing Smart Community Initiatives that recommends that we do what we're talking about right now. So and the State of the Nation housing, that was some of the research. Anyway, so there's other stuff out there, just, and I'm done.
Yep.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So what I want to do is I want to go over and pull up the chat, which I had up a moment ago. I was looking at it a moment ago. So let me go through the chat and see what's, we have a number of things here. Okay, so I wanted to let me go to I'm going to start at the top of the chat. Well, we've already answered, where is Kai? We know he's not here. And then there was something, but right. And I did answer some in the chat that we haven't confirmed our target percentage yet. We're in a listening phase now. We haven't gotten to the deliberation decision phase, but we're certainly in the listening phase right now. So some things we haven't confirmed yet is, what are we going to call owner occupied, non-owner occupied? We bounced around some ideas in a previous call. So we haven't deliberated yet because we're still in a listening phase. Raising the fees. So Linda, I'm thinking that's you. It's L&T Lover, but it could be either of you weighing in. on that. So yes, yay, Linda, yay. So in any event, yes, that was a very strong message of what Urena just showed us is raising the fees, and that's pretty much a common recommendation. So we do need to look at that and make some decisions on raising fees. I agree with that. Heather WS TRA advocated for raising fees significantly. I think I jumped around. I think I might have missed something because there was something that Sarah had said, and I said to Sarah, let's discuss later. Yeah, when will Kai return? Should I reach out directly? So Sarah, I didn't know what your role is actually. So Sarah, if I knew what your role is, I'm not sure whether you're, you know, if you want to reach out to Kai, I'm not quite sure what your role is. And is Sarah, oh, Sarah's on mute. So Sarah, if you wanted to, oh, there, yay,
I'm
there's
sorry.
Sarah.
I'm sorry,
no
I didn't realize how to unmute.
There you go.
At first,
I hear you now.
Okay. I don't have any official role actually. I've been trying to be more involved, and I'm honestly just learning how things work.
Mhm.
So I've been trying to post calendar events, and I've been more involved with calling the town, trying to get involved, trying to learn who posts Zoom links, etc., and trying to get in touch. So, and agendas, etc. So trying to get in touch with everyone, making sure emails exist.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if I understand everyone has busy lives, so I learn about that too. It's been great. To share that information out on the Nextdoor app. That's primarily
okay.
my role. I am just a citizen. That's my role, a citizen, and someone who shows up more regularly at meetings now.
Yeah, okay.
Learning. And
Okay.
Thank you for helping me learn. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
So
Yeah.
so Kai, in my view, Kai is at the county. So
Right.
in your question, should you reach out directly? We probably want to be, as a town, figuring out, you know, as you attend, and you're welcome. These are the zoning revision committee meetings are open meetings. You're certainly welcome to every zoning revision committee meeting. So in
Sure.
terms of reaching out to Kai, we might want to be deciding, you know, maybe it makes sense as a zoning revision committee, and as you attend and weigh in with your thoughts, it may make sense for us as zoning revision committee to reach out to Kai. The housing committee clearly has reached out to Kai. I'm not sure the benefit of individual citizens reaching out to Kai, because you probably want to hook into, you know, the different teams have momentum. The housing committee has momentum. Zoning revision committee has momentum. If you're a single citizen reaching out to Kai, for example, I honestly, I haven't been on Nextdoor very much. I'm just being honest. I haven't really been on Nextdoor very much. So to me, if you want to weigh into the zoning revision committee, coming here and talking as you are is the right way to do it. You know, there's a million Facebook pages, honestly, and so am I going to be
too many? I know,
Yeah.
and that has been my problem. So that has been my problem, but I have reached out to the town. I have reached out to the Woodstock, New.org email addresses, and I actually checked in with Bill's secretary today because I wanted to make sure those addresses were working.
Right.
You know, I've had trouble getting responses, so we checked live, and we did test it. They do work.
Yeah.
But I understand that everyone else, you know, I understand people devote their time and they have other jobs, sure. So, but, you know, when I wait a week and ask like, hey, is this happening? I did reach out to Kai personally. Actually, we did have a conversation. And on top of that, he did encourage me as a citizen to reach out to him personally and encourage all of us as citizens of Woodstock to reach out to him personally with our thoughts. So that is, you know, contrary, I'm sorry, to what you're saying now, but you know, I think it, as they say, it takes a village. I mean, we are a town, but
Yeah.
we have our hamlets, and there's a lot going on, and we should all have our voice. But I was just looking for response to that. So, thank you for responding.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're welcome.
Thank
And
you.
so and everything, we kind of work things out over time. So, and just my
Yeah.
point though is,
But we don't have a lot of time right now. We've got multiple issues, and they are all interconnected at this time. So I have many concerns, of course. And not a lot of people show up. So that is when you're saying, like, what is my role? My role is I just want people to understand what's going on and show up, because I didn't show up enough in the past. And now that I'm showing up, I'm like, wow.
yeah, there's stuff to do.
Yikes.
But my point
I
about,
want to help.
I
yeah,
feel like
so as
losing-
you,
we're-
sorry, let me go, and then kind of give you a turn. So as you reach out individually to Kai to make a difference in Woodstock, what's going to be best is exactly what you're doing now, which is you're coming to the zoning revision committee meeting. If you want to make a
Yes.
difference on housing, go to the housing meeting, because as you reach out, so my point really was, as you reach out individually to Kai, it maybe helps more, and Kai knows what you're thinking, but to really make a difference in town, hooking into a group that's working and has some momentum, and so being here just as you are today is going to be very helpful. And Connor, I know you want to say something.
I reached out to find out if he was coming to the meeting, because I had not heard back from Woodstock whether or not he was actually attending, which originally he said he was. And I wanted to confirm that, because I promised our town that I would confirm that was it, or that I would confirm whether or not I had heard back. And I hoped I would have heard back from our town, and I wanted to make our town look.
Well, I will tell you. I will
all.
tell you as far as I always we see somebody waving in Jeffrey's
That's
screen
all,
there.
and that
yeah.
was it. That's
So,
it.
yeah.
I hope to have a good relationship that way with our
Yeah,
calendar,
okay.
and that's it. Thank you.
Well, and the thing about, so I know where I left it with Kai at our meeting 2 weeks ago was he was invited, but I never required him to tell me if he was coming. So
Sure. After that, we can talk offline, but yes.
Yeah,
And I hope we can. I've reached out. I look forward to having a conversation with you. Thank you.
Well,
I will mute myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. So right. All right. So we'll over time, hopefully all the pieces fit in. So, all right, Connor, I think you want to say something.
I just want to keep this on track. I feel like we just went majorly, aside there, and I'd like to maybe move on from the chat from now and discuss the merits of this, of what we came here to discuss. If something does not get answered in that time, but I mean, let's keep, like you said, let's keep some momentum behind this discussion.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So what are your, Jude has your hand raised, but Connor, are you finished, or did you have something more to say?
Well, I suppose the things I don't have any questions, but I want to keep us focused on, like we said at the end, there's this number, like as part of our goals, we want to have some sort of availability rate. I think it was floating around 4 or 5% to be what was considered healthy for an area. Right. So if the overall recommendation is to get Granicus, because on top of what's already existing at 200, 300 plus legal Airbnbs, plus another 197, what puts us in that double digit area in terms of the housing stock that we're losing. So tackling that number and being realistic about, what that means. I feel like what we've discussed in the past leans more towards, if we're not saying non-owner occupied, then full house rentals, if that's part of our vernacular, and thinking about that. But, from what I've seen over the last 3 presentations, I do think there's a lot of, Granicus seems like a good way to go. I guess my only question for them would be, beyond an initial sort of looking at our laws as part of a consulting module, would, we be able to sort of scale up and down our, package with you depending on our needs? Because again, our goal would hopefully be to maybe have a sort of, I imagine depending on how granular our law wants to be is also how much we may want to ask of you in terms of subscribing to those various 5 modules.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say we have a lot of people obviously re-up year to year to year to year. There is some cost, both I think in terms of more in terms of time often, that if you drop a module and then try to bring it back, there's just spin up cost to kind of to get it re-engineered, right? It's not running in the background if you're not interested in it. But like I said, besides address identification, which it sounds like you're sharing a little bit with the county, we won't sell you something that you don't need. And so, yeah, it depends on the ordinance, and it depends on your staff time and what your those sorts of factors. So every place we work with has a little different combo of what they want, how they configure it, and ultimately then what the price is.
And I think also like say one of the modules we want 90% of it, but there might be a little piece of it that we don't want. We don't have to have, so it can be, adapted to our rural community, since we're not an urban major city with thousands and thousands,
And I believe, and I hope I'm right about this, because I'm not on the sales side. I believe the contract is renewed yearly, so that the price adjusts to where you're at. I hope that's right. Again, I'm not on the sales side, I'm on the policy side, but we're not locking you in for 99 years or something. No.
Okay, so Jude and Ed both had their hands up, but Jude had her hand up first.
Let Ed go, please.
Excuse me, what's that?
You can let Ed go first.
Let it go. Okay, Ed, you're on mute, but if you had your hand up, Ed, did you have something you wanted to weigh in on?
Ed, you're still muted if you can't.
Yeah, I think he's looking for the unmute button. Are you looking for the unmute button, Ed?
Are you able to unmute him as the town?
Well, I can ask him to unmute. I'm clicking ask to unmute. I don't know if by my clicking ask to unmute, I didn't know whether it brought up a. Yeah, I can't.
Left.
Hello?
Ah, there, yay, there he is. Hi there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Excellent.
Look, I think it's untoward pressure on our zoning revision committee. We've been together for 4 years. We've written a telecommunications law. We've written the scenic overlay law. We've written a lot of law, and we need to get together in a private or a conversation where we can talk freely among ourselves and figure out what we want to do. I've been involved in the short-term rental law ever since the original committee was formed. I wrote the first version of the short-term rental law in effect now in Woodstock. So I think there's untoward pressure on us. This gentleman from New Orleans, I love New Orleans. New Orleans is great. I wrote a book about New Orleans, but it's premature to hire this gentleman to write or oversee or even comment on our law. We want to get together. We're all intelligent people. We have a vast experience, and we know we've all gathered all the laws, STR laws in the region. We've communicated with all over on this and pulled together a lot of information. So we should, Connor, me, Jeff had some good ideas.
Yeah.
And I liked some of Jeff's proposal.
Yeah, and
from
Jude,
like a
Jude's
month
waving her
ago.
hand. Yeah, Jude too. Yeah. Well, and me too. So I agree with you, with Ed. And what I had said early on, and my thought was, we're still in a listening phase, and everybody says jump on this, and January is right around the corner, and we don't have a meeting between now and January. So I hear you when you say jump on this, but on the other hand, I agree with Ed. We want to do some thinking about what our own goals are. But I also had talked to Michael Henry, I think is the person that I had talked to for the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association. We want to be listening. So we've gotten a clear message from the Housing Association. We got a clear message from Kai. I believe we need to have a clear message from the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association, because we want to hear from everybody, because then we have a better chance of our solution being best for everybody. And we haven't yet heard from the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association either. So I agree with you, Ed, and even that was part of Uranus presentation. There was a page that said, what's the first step? Determine your goals. Clearly, clearly determine your goals is the first step. I think we ought to be listening to the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association and then go in to determine our goals, because we haven't really heard from everybody yet. So that's my opinion, is at our next meeting, invite, and Michael Henry, would that be you, or would that be somebody else on the Short-Term Rental Association? Have you be our agenda topic at the next meeting. And then I'm not sure if there's any other official group we should hear from, but hearing from the short-term rental task force is a group to hear from, but that's kind of what we did with Kai. That was the whole point. The answer I got when I asked who's a good person to talk about it, I was told Kai that had a really significant part of writing what the STR task force came up with, which was, so I see Linda nodding her head. So Linda, since you were on the committee, if there's anybody else from the committee that should speak, but I think we kind of heard from the short-term rental task force when Kai spoke last week. We've heard from housing this time. I'd like to hear from the short-term rental association. And I don't know if there's any group besides that we should hear from, and then go into our goal setting and deliberations and hone it from there. So that's my thought. And our next meeting would be the second Monday in January. And I'm just going to go pull up my calendar here. Our next meeting is January 8th, 6:30 on Zoom. And the Zoom information always winds up eventually on the calendar. I know Linda had emailed and said, well, it's not there yet. And when I went and looked, it was. So between when she looked and when I looked, anyway, it did turn up there. So the Zoom is always on the calendar. So if you look on the January 8th calendar, at some point you will see the Zoom link. And again, so Michael, I see you're on camera now, but and now you're off mute. So did you want to talk for a moment?
Yeah, I unfortunately I wasn't here for the earlier part of the meeting. I was in another meeting. So Lisa and Heather are gonna fill me in a little bit later. But yeah, one of us will definitely, if not all of us, will be there January 8th, and we'll figure out who wants to take a lead in speaking, and we really appreciate being included. I mean, I think one of the basic themes that we have is that it doesn't make sense to group all short-term rentals in one basket. We think there's been a bit of a trend to demonize short-term rentals as the big underlying cause for the housing affordability crisis that is, certainly throughout the Hudson Valley and really in many places in the country for a lot of factors. And it's been very easy to sort of cast short-term rentals as this very deterministic cause. And if we only didn't have any short-term rentals, housing prices would drop precipitously, and everyone who grew up in Woodstock could live in Woodstock, and everyone who works in Woodstock could live in Woodstock. And, I think that's overstating the case. So what most of our members are interested in is we are part-time residents of Woodstock, many of us with very long time roots. I've been living in Woodstock part-time with my family since 2004. I know Lisa is multi-generation in Woodstock. And we agree that we don't think the regulations should support investors buying up huge amounts of housing stock and, doing it for investment purposes and running it, as a big business. But we are sort of middle, we obviously are very fortunate to be able to have a second home. We certainly know that we're in a very privileged position to do that. But most of the houses, the full houses that our members have, if we didn't have short-term rental income, we wouldn't be able to afford the upkeep of the house. And
Michael, I'm
tell-
very, I don't mean to interrupt. It's just that I once again have to ask. I mean, we came here, like Urena came and presented. We
Mhm.
have a body of work, that I'm sure begs discussion. And I understand you were on the agenda for January 8th.
Mhm.
Now, if I can address Laura, I just feel like, I am fine with us going later. I think we should, now that our meetings are becoming less frequent. But I do want to make sure that we're not just, ceding the time to what we do have scheduled before us. We've been waiting to hear this. So I do apologize, but I'm feeling like this meeting is off the rails a little bit.
Well, I do think, I know Jude has your hand up. Let me just go for a sec. It is, and I am watching my clock. We do need to, I think that we should be really wrapping. We've done this agenda. What I would ask Michael is that you, Lisa, and Heather, just like Urena did a totally fabulous job, well organized, had her points there and made them. So we don't want to be rambly, but so we would like you to have your, as the three of you, Lisa, Michael, and Heather, as you decide who's going to speak. Also, if you can have your points so that we can go through them, because and as much as you can, I know you kind of, it's easy to say opinions, but I'm not sure how much will be opinions and how much will be, but I do want to hear from you. But being concise will be good. And if you have, Urena had a lot to say, and she had a lot of evidence and a lot of data and a lot to share. I'm not sure how much you will have, but in any event, so you'll be the first thing on the agenda, and then we'll move from that into some more of the discussions, just like we're saying. So you'll be the first thing on the agenda on January 8th, but have the thoughts organized so that you can go through them. And it says, please add. Yeah, Sarah, I know, Sarah. Yeah, there's the perfect world and there's the real world. The names of guests, you're here, Sarah, so you do know that Michael Henry and Heather Cross and Lisa Collish, you're here, so you do know that they'll be the guests speaking. It is what it is. So in any event, we'll pick up with you all. I would like to close this meeting pretty soon, because we've gone for a long time, more than the regular time. Jude, you had your hand up, so go ahead, Jude.
Thank you. Okay. I think in the very beginning, when we started this conversation, I believe we started setting goals. I think if we go back to our meeting, we did have discussions about goals. Just in terms of Granicus, I called Melinda McKnight a long time ago and talked to her about early short rental laws, and they use Granicus. And what she told me, because I asked her a few questions, is she said it paid for itself, and they were very happy about it. So in reference to everything Urena was saying, so that's a good report from a local town. I know that when you talk about fees, you talk about things like administration, enforcement, and trying to tie those in so they're reasonable. But if Granicus is somebody that the town chooses to hire, then that would be our administrative costs, in my opinion. And that is how you could divide up those costs among whoever has the permits. I sent out, and I'm trying to be quick here. I sent out the article that was in the Freeman the other day,
which was excellent. I read that. That was excellent.
So I went and I looked at the article was really good. And then there was a summary that they hand out to people about their laws. And then I went and I looked at their law, and I have to say it was so straightforward, so clear. Anybody can understand it. And, and then it made me think about things that we need to think about what we want to do. I mean, they set a 1% cap. That was their goal in Kingston. They said no accessory dwelling units can be a short-term rental. they didn't even, and then they had different fee levels for somebody who rented their entire house. So that was one fee level, that was the high fee level. Then they had another lower fee level, application fee level, for somebody who said, I'm going to rent my house as a short-term rental, but for less than 30 days a year. And that is considered another level. And then the people who have, who, I don't remember what we decided to call them, but they're living in their house and they're renting out a room. And that was that same low fee level. So there's just a lot of things for us to consider, the percentage of how many we want to allow. And then the other thing they do in Kingston is they have specific areas where it's allowed and where it's not. And that's something else we had discussed at one of our very early meetings as well. Like, do we want to have, different numbers that we allow in different hamlets or different parts of town? Or these are all things that we need to consider. So I'm just throwing that out there because these are things that I'm thinking about. And in terms of lawsuits, anybody can sue the town. There's a lot of information out there. I speak to someone up at the Department of State who sent me a lot of various lawsuits in the town, in the state that have been, and generally, I'm going to say that what I've seen is that towns do prevail. We have a right to determine how we create zoning and how we control what goes on in the town. Nobody has a right under the law to rent their house as a short-term rental. So, because there are some places that have banned them completely, and the courts have shown that, the town could do that. I'm not suggesting, please don't attack me. I'm not suggesting we do that. But all I'm saying is, I think we do have some law behind us that we're able to monitor this and create limits in ways that make sense for our town. So that's my 2 cents. And hopefully we'll get to those discussions at some point, because I do feel I agree with Connor. Sometimes we seem to get a little sidetracked, and all of us, I'm not referring to you, Jeffrey, but our time is valuable and we want to stay focused on where we're going. And I look forward to hearing what the short-term rental people have to say next week, but let's do it next week.
Yeah, definitely we'll do it next week. And let me just ask a quick question too. Melinda McKnight again, who is Melinda McKnight?
Oh, she's the town supervisor in Hurley.
Oh, Hurley Town Supervisor. Ah, great. Okay, thank you.
So
And
I was asking her because, that was one of the towns that was held up as an example of having a good short-term rental.
Yes.
They have a requirement that it be owner occupied. And I have a lot of comments from her that I'll share at another meeting about their law and what their goals were and all that kind of stuff, but that's for another meeting.
But would that we might be able to fit that in on the January 8th meeting as well? Because I don't think that the STR Association will take up the whole time. So if you'd be willing to share that at the January 8th meeting, that would be fabulous. Okay. Okay, thanks. And Connor, were you jumping in there?
Yes, just to respond to something that was said a bit earlier, no one was, I think, committing to, signing any contract with Granicus, but I would definitely contend that since I have been involved in this issue, at least since 2017 and beyond, it's been apparent that it's not something that you can do by hand. It's not that kind of job. It is the kind that you need software for, whether it's through, again, address level stuff, or, seeing if people are really, operating locally. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is, I think whether it was Granicus or something else, we should definitely anticipate our law having to interact with some sort of enforcement interface. And in terms of not necessarily leaning on someone like Jeffrey to write our laws for us, but to say, okay, these are the services they provide. We understand what those services are and their limitations. And in conjunction, as we start to conceptualize and prioritize our goals, lean on that, if that is the type of subscription we decide to go with, so that we can better tailor the law to interact with what we know is possible.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, we've had an excellent, well, let me ask one more question to Jeffrey Goodman there. So if we did want to reach out and you said you're not the marketing guy. So if we did want to engage with Granicus, who do we engage with?
That's my colleague Samantha, who's
Okay.
a account executive.
Okay.
And she's been the one who's been in contact with all the housing people and everything. So it's her birthday, which is why she got me to come in. But yeah, and you know, to the other points, like I said, in terms of support when it comes to ordinance development, I came from housing. I never want to be someone who just jetpacks in and says, "Hey, I'm Moses." I'm mixing metaphors. I'm Moses from the mountaintop. Here's how you do it. Peace out. You know, I want to support you however you want to you want or need support in terms of writing pieces, editing pieces, giving advice, giving examples from other places so that you can defend certain choices, whatever it needs to be. So, you know, don't feel like it's you know, I'm some whole package that you know is just going to tell you what to do. That's not who I am.
Okay, we'll work together. Yeah. Okay. And what is Samantha's last name, just out of curiosity?
White.
White.
Yeah, she's been our liaison that we've been talking to and working with and answering questions and giving, you know.
Great. So you have contact information for them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Okay.
Also, I think Deborah Dewan, who is the town liaison for housing, was originally the first. She's just been very busy as of recent, but
sure,
she works between committees as well to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So I do want to, we're going to close now. Is there anything really urgent that anybody has to say before we close?
If you have any more questions for Jeffrey, I would say, but one of the things is he did know about banning. So that was one of the big things that Rhinebeck had walked back some of their banning. We can talk about it at a different meeting, but
okay.
If while he's here now, he's not necessarily going to be here unless we contract him. So, but the rulings that went down the appellate court down in actually Louisiana.
Fifth Circuit.
Yeah, so he knows about that, and some people up here, some municipalities up here have gotten a little nervous, but he has the information. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, sure. So that actually
excuse me, we already talked about this with Kai last week, right? Or last time, guys.
No, this is something different.
No, this isn't. It really isn't. I think, Laura, please.
Yeah, well, I know, and we've gone almost 2 hours here, and we normally go an hour and a half at the most. We shoot for an hour, we go for an hour and a half at the most, and we've been 2 hours, and I think people are
it's dinner time. It's dinner time.
Well, it's time to let the brains rest.
Yeah.
But I absolutely thank everybody for being here. I thank Urena, great job, wonderful job on the presentation. Jeffrey Goodman, wonderful information, wonderful insight. I thank everybody for weighing in because I had a lot of great conversations.
Well, Laura, I'm sorry, but before we go, I have one more question again, because if you be here, you know, I mean, one of the questions that's come up recently is just more about like walking back, not even full out bans, but again, walking back a certain amount of existing Airbnbs. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a predetermined outcome, but what I am asking is if you've seen success with that in the work that you've done, essentially the downscaling of registered Airbnbs.
Well, I'll be quick because I'm a kibitzer and I will go on forever, but I think the first big chunk that comes off is going to be the illegal ones. And then from that, you can step down the number of registered ones if you start to reduce, say, a cap, or which some places have. The hardest part is in certain states, by having given someone a license, they have a certain expectation, a certain right. So that is can be more difficult, and we can get into that, but I don't want to take up too much time. But it is possible within state laws.
Yeah, because that is, well, that is kind of what I'm asking, I guess, on the more consultant level, not on the general package, but as we write our laws, like, again, just to point it out one last time before we wrap it up, we're at something like 11%, and we're probably want to be closer to 4. So that's it. Thank you.
So Connor, I told you I do have someone I speak to at the Department of State. I did ask that question, and yes, we can. In New York State.
There we go.
Wow, cool. Let me just make a note here. So we can pull back, we can walk back.
Yes, I think there's basically you scale it back over a period of time. You can't just say one day you have it and the next day you don't.
Right. Yeah, okay. Cool. Okay, and we'll figure out when we figure out what our goals are, we'll figure out how we need to get there, and walking back might be something we need to do, but we need to figure out our goals first. So, okay. One last call. Anything else urgent before we go? Wonderful discussion. Thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I'll be briefer if we meet again.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
We're
Talk to
good.
you soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you, Laura, for inviting us to speak next time. We
Oh,
really
sure,
appreciate that.
totally. And I'm just capturing the chat before we go here. So I'm still here, but I'm gonna capture the chat and hang on, I'm coming back here. Yeah, no, you're welcome. And I appreciate again, I want to make sure that we've heard everybody and heard all perspectives, and then we'll move on from there.
Right. Is it possible to get a copy of the PowerPoint that was presented today? Urana,
I think I know I'd asked Urana if she could send that. Urana, I see you're still there.
I think that's something we have to figure out. Usually what we do is we put it on our Facebook page because it's the housing committee.
Oh, cool.
And
cool.
so a lot of times we put stuff that or either a link to or put it in, but usually we try to put it on and we might have to screenshot because I don't think you can put PowerPoints. But we put
a link.
Woodstock Community Homes is our Facebook page. It's pretty much.
So you can't post a file to your Facebook page?
You can, but you can't post. I think you can't post things like certain things you can't post, like PDF or PowerPoint. It's the type of file.
Okay.
Like a link or something. So I think I've done in the past when we've had other presentations with PowerPoints is I have to screenshot each page. JPEG or actually PNG, and then it's a lot of work. So
wow.
So hopefully within the week, I'm going to try to do that.
Must be an easier way. It must be an easier way. You must be able to create a link.
It's easier to do it also also the other thing is sometimes we do a newsletter and we put it in there, kind of thing. Like you can do that in something like that, but we want to get it to the most people with the least amount of work because there's only a few of us.
Yeah,
we're doing all this other work too. So I worked on this till 3:30 in the morning, so.
Well, you did a fabulous job.
Thank you. It's a lot of work.
So
But it's a lot of words and I felt like it needed to be not so wordy feeling, but whatever, moving on. Thank you.
Well, it was a great communication. So you did a fabulous job. So
okay. Just give me like a week or so. It might be sooner or later, but I have a full-time job and I've got housing committee meeting this week and and
So but you can
stuff on the weekends.
But for now you could just send it to me though, at least, right? So I'll have it.
I'll send it to the ZRC.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, I thought it was public information. That's why it was presented.
I know. Lisa. You'll get it. Just be patient. I was up till 3:30 in the morning. I did a full day of work. I just spent 3 hours here. Tomorrow I've got another full day, and I've got more work to do. And then I got a housing meeting. I'd like, I know that
she needs a break
right now, but you need to please be patient.
Your Urana is officially on break in about 5 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right.